Christina White, Supervisor of Elections for Miami-Dade County. From the voter's perspective, I would say that our biggest challenge is getting people out to vote in elections that are not presidential elections. Because you see a huge variance in turnout from, say, a primary election or a gubernatorial election to when compared to a presidential. So the turnout can be somewhere around 20 to 25% for the other elections, and then in hugely different, it's around 70 to 75%. So energizing and encouraging our voters to come out regardless of the size or scope of the election is certainly a challenge. We try to impart upon people that it's actually your local government that has the largest impact on your lives. So you really want to take every opportunity to vote. From the operational perspective, I would say it's about getting our workforce ready. For an election, a countywide election, we are relying on up to 7,000 poll workers, and it could be another 1,000 for early voting. So we have a small window with ever-changing election laws, and these are people that don't do this every day. They get paid a stipend, but it's essentially a volunteer job. So we have to take a lot of care and effort in training them and making sure that they're ready to serve our voters appropriately on election day. The voting equipment in Miami-Dade is relatively new. We went to the paper-based voting system in 2008, like most of the state, when we were required to do so. So we have equipment that has been updated. So before 2008, it was all electronic. It was the touchscreen voting unit. It didn't provide a paper trail. And in 2007, the state legislature said that they wanted to go to a paper-based system so that there is a paper record as proof of the accuracy of the voting system. So when the voter votes, whether by mail, early voting, or election day, they're actually voting on a paper ballot where they're bubbling their selection. It's being fed through a scanner that is electronically tabulating those results. But one of the best things that I say about the integrity of our system and why voters should be confident is that we do an audit after every election. And we're actually comparing manually the votes that we see on those paper ballots with what the system had tabulated. And of course, they match every time. So that is the benefit of having the paper-based system, because you always have that paper record to go back to and compare the accuracy of the results. It's a lot of rhetoric. There is really no evidence of voter fraud. The Miami-Dade County follows the same laws that all counties do in the state of Florida, so I can say that voters in Florida in general should not be concerned about voter fraud. Okay? I can speak to you from a couple different perspectives. The cybersecurity aspect of it. The county has very extensive firewall systems for not just elections, but all of its operations. There have never been any evidence of hacking or compromise, I can say with confidence. But in terms of the voting system itself, again, I go back to the audit to make sure that there is no hacking of our voting systems. Right. And then the other aspect of it that had been talked about recently was the voter rolls and the accuracy of the voter rolls. And this is a constant thing that my county and the other counties in the state of Florida are doing. We are doing list maintenance daily. And so there is a verification process that happens at the state level that ensures that the people that are on the voter rolls, in fact, are real people and that they should be on the rolls. And if they shouldn't because of a death or they become a felon or other reasons, these are people that are being removed on an almost daily basis. So, from the cybersecurity to the maintenance of our voter rolls to the security of our system, I think it's something that voters should not be concerned about. The types of locations that we're able to use is very limited by state law. So working within those confines, we canvassed the entire county. And we picked the best locations in terms of size, because at the end of the day, we realized that if you want to move people quickly through the line, you have to have enough space that you can put ample equipment and proper staffing. And parking.
Yeah.
So city halls, government centers, public libraries, it's mostly public buildings that don't always have all of that criteria. But we were able to find 30 sites that fit the criteria, and clearly it worked well, because if you ask me about what I'm most proud of, it would probably be how successful the presidential election was. People waited in some cases long lines in 2012, and me and my staff knew we had a lot to prove to our voters going into this election cycle. And I've had nothing but very positive feedback about voter experience, which makes me and our staff quite proud.
It was my first time voting in Miami, in Florida.
Oh, really?
It was wonderful. 10 minutes.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the sites, that really was the criteria.
32 sites or 30?
30 sites.
30 sites.
In the last presidential, there were 20. We went up to 30.
Mm-hmm.
So we added sites, and we made sure that the sites that we chose were large enough to add equipment. So in 2012, we realized that the length of our lines had a lot to do with the length of the ballot. Because the longer the ballot, the more time people are going to spend in the privacy booth. And the questions that people are voting on aren't always clear. Sometimes they're very long and complex questions. So what we did is a study beginning in 2013 of how long it was taking people to vote in the privacy booth. And we came up with sort of an algorithm of what if the ballot is 2 pages, it's going to take them 9 minutes in the privacy booth. So we came up with a formula that determined, okay, once we know how long the ballot is, we know how many privacy booths we need, we know how many check-in stations we need, we know how many scanners we need.
Wow,
So we use
that's a real planning. Yeah.
Yes,
Oh.
so it's a queuing theory is really what it is.
9 minutes, wow. Segue.
And so we use that data to resource the presidential election, and it worked well for us because we had very low wait times all throughout. And we tracked our wait times, by the way, in early voting and on election day. And the average voter did wait less than 10 minutes.